The first time I truly questioned my worth as an artist, I was sitting in a cramped studio with pale walls and a stale draft fluttering the edges of my portfolio. Four professors in varying shades of grey cardigans lined one side of the battered oak table. My work was spread before them, a parade of colours that no longer felt like mine. Their expressions coalesced into a single mass of guarded skepticism as they flipped through my canvases and charcoal sketches. One woman, her glasses constantly sliding down her nose, squinted at an abstract cityscape I'd painted as if she were looking for an answer in its brushstrokes and not finding it. She pursed her lips and glanced at the man beside her, the chair of the art department, his posture stern, his hands always steepled together. They spoke in tight, polite phrases, their words wrapped in academic detachment. "You have energy," said the chair, nudging a canvas with his knuckle, "but your vision feels undisciplined. I wonder if you're approaching these as sketches for something more finished, or if you consider them to be final works." I swallowed and said, "They're finished. This is how I see them." A silence fell, heavy as Lowe's Angel's smog. I could hear the metallic buzz of a tired air conditioning unit. My throat stayed dry. I already knew how this would go. They handed the rejection with soft voices. "We encourage you to keep developing and reapply," the woman offered, kindness strained in her tone. My fingers tightened around the strap of my bag as I gathered my work, each brushstroke suddenly so inadequate under their scrutiny. I nodded, listened to their gentle suggestions, resisted the urge to ask if any of them had painted for the simple reason of wanting to breathe. Outside, the sunlight blinded me. I blinked away, tears I told myself were from the glare, not the words. My parents' living room was a display of what they considered achievement. My brother's framed degree in electrical engineering dominated the mantelpiece, shining in a way my stretcher bars never would. Plastic flowers, sun-bleached at the edges, filled vases next to wedding photos. I tried to slip inside quietly, but the real world is never as forgiving as a fresh canvas. My mother looked up from the ironing board, her mouth already set for battle. Well, her eyes flickered to the portfolio in my hand, too thin now, I'd left half my work behind on campus. "How did it go?" I hesitated, trying to find a way to soften it, but I couldn't. "They don't think I'm ready," I said. "They want me to keep practicing." She clicked her tongue and returned to smoothing the sleeve of my father's office shirt. "You see, I told you this is what happens when you play with hobbies and you're not practical. Have you thought about the accounting program? Everyone needs accountants. Gloria's daughter just got a job at a bank." "Mom, I don't want to." My father came in from the back patio, hands stained from gardening, the air filled with the sharp scent of tomato leaves. "What's going on?" he asked, sensing tension. "She didn't get in," my mother answered for me, shaking her head. "Maybe this is for the best." He looked at me, and for a split second I caught something almost like sympathy, but his frown closed around it before I could reach for the feeling. "You gave it a shot. Not everyone is meant to do this painting thing." He wiped his hands on a towel and exhaled. "Doesn't mean you failed, but maybe now you look at something stable." Outside, laughter spilled through fences. Our neighbors' sons played basketball on cracked concrete, shouting as the balls slammed into a rusted hoop. Their mother, Mrs. Reyes, leaned over the fence and called out to me, her voice bright and sharp. "Rebecca, your mother said you didn't get the art thing. Come sit, I'll give you some empanadas. Maybe it's a sign." No, she meant well, but every word strung. I went inside instead, closing my bedroom door and sitting cross-legged on the old carpet. I stared at the paintings on my wall, small attempts at escape. Laundromat interiors, blue city streets, lonely bus stops, all rendered in layers only I seemed to see. The afternoon softened to gold, and in the hush I made a decision. If I stayed here, if I let their disbelief take up space until it pushed out all my resolve, I'd lose something I couldn't replace. I packed my bags that weekend. No grand speech, just the knowledge that every minute I spent defending myself was another moment lost. Dad gave me $50, which I folded into my wallet, and Mom sent me with enough frozen tamales to last a month. "Don't waste your life on dreams that aren't real," she said as I hugged her goodbye. But she lingered at the door, watching as I walked down the path and toward a future she'd never understand. Los Angeles is a city swollen with hopes, most of them bruised, some already discarded. I found an apartment in Koreatown, one room above a shuttered market, the walls thin enough that I could hear my neighbors' quiet sobbing through the night. My bed was a futon and my easel sat by the window where the light made every color fierce and honest. I took what work I could find, waiting tables at a Persian cafe on Wilshire, washing dishes, painting sets for student films. Every dollar stretched thin across canvas and rent. I painted in the hours left after double shifts, scraping together colors from discount art stores. My hands grew rough, wrists aching, but I filled canvas after canvas, smog-struck sunsets, crowded buses, lonely figures by neon-lit motels. Sometimes I brought friends from work home to pose for portraits. Jose, who bussed tables with me, would sit holding a takeout carton, his eyes always searching for a horizon just beyond the window. After a year, I joined open mic nights at a scrappy gallery behind a laundromat. The crowd was young, hungry, fierce. My paintings hung there for 7 days. I sold 2. One to a dreadlocked student who said my colors made him feel like taking a bath after a hard day, and another to a middle-aged woman who pressed 2 20s into my hand and said nothing at all, but her eyes brimmed with the same tired hope I'd known. Not glamour, not success, but something real, something that pulled me through every setback. I called my mother once a week out of duty. Conversations looped around safer topics, food, bills, the weather, her scraping worry nearly audible in every silence. She'd mention stories from church. Mrs. Chang's son opened his own dental office. Do you remember the Changs from Glendale? You should talk to him. Maybe he knows someone who needs murals. Sometimes when I heard my father in the background, I'd imagine him shaking his head, already dismissing my world. If my sister picked up, she'd ask, "Still chasing rainbows, Becca?" I'd smile because even if I explained my art, the reason why faces revealed through blue light make strangers weep, or why I can never sleep until I finish a horizon, it would always sound foolish to them. I stopped bringing up gallery nights. I stopped waiting for them to ask. 3 years in, the apartment ceiling developed a leak. I was working at a movie theater, sweeping popcorn under velvet seats until 2 in the morning. I painted at dawn, my work lit by the flicker of the city outside. A friend, Nikhil, convinced me to post some canvases online, Instagram, Twitter, even Reddit. "Let them see," he said, adjusting his round glasses as he snapped photos. "You don't ask, you don't get." I didn't expect much, but within a month, a curator from a new gallery messaged. They were running an exhibit called Lowe's Angels, Between the Lines. They wanted fresh voices. I brought in 4 paintings, terrified they'd laugh at my scuffed frames and second-hand canvases. Instead, they hung them front and center. The night of the opening, strangers hovered by my work, whispering, some pointing, some silent. I watched an older couple linger by my midnight on 6th Street, their faces still as they took in the way blue light fractured across glass and skin. Later, a visiting critic, hair wild, eyes tired and kind, found me near the exit, clutching a program. "Your painting," she said, voice quiet, "just for me, feels like loneliness that's almost bearable." "That's rare," she pressed a card into my palm. "I want to show your work next season, don't disappear." And I didn't disappear. The next year took me places I'd only watched from bleachers and bus stops, the clatter of Venice art walks, late nights painting murals on blank cinder block, my hands stained but steady. A video of me painting a sunset over the 110 went viral, and one foggy morning a gallery in Santa Monica offered me a solo show. They printed my name, Rebecca Chan, New LA Realism, in tall letters on the window. The opening night buzzed with bodies and soft conversations, and above it all was the same silence I'd felt the day I left home, resolute, a hum beneath my skin. I stood by my work. Gallery staff offered drinks in slim flutes and strangers drifted toward me with questions. A woman bought 3 pieces for her office. A teacher told me he'd shown photos of my portraits to his class, that they wanted to paint people the way I did, hungry, flawed, alive. I sent invitations to my family and to old neighbors, even though I wasn't sure they'd come. When the day of return came, it was as hot as August can get in the valley, white sky, air thick enough to taste. I arrived early, nerves jangling in my stomach, waiting for faces I hadn't seen in years to walk through those shining glass doors. My parents entered together. My father wore his usual work shirt. My mother had combed her hair until it shone. Their footsteps echoed as they moved past marble sculptures and abstract oils by other artists who'd already made it years before I dared dream. They stopped in front of my largest canvas, Grand Central at dusk, a whirl of violet and gold, bodies folding into a city pulse, faces briefly illuminated by passing light. Mom's hand covered her mouth. She stared. Maybe for the first time she was seeing not just her daughter but the work, what it had taken. Dad tucked his hands behind his back, silent, eyes roaming the painting, then settling on my signature in the corner. I saw him tracing the letters R-Chan, his brow furrowed, then his lips pressed into a thin, proud line. The gallery curator, sharp suit, eager smile, approached. "You must be Rebecca's parents. We are so honored to feature her." "These sold in the first hour," he gestured to red dots under the frames. "Critics say she's one of the most honest voices for working Lowe's angels. She's changed what people see in the city." People began to gather, the neighbors, Mrs. Ray's beaming and snapping photos, my cousins in eager clumps, the same ones who'd teased me for years about painting pretty things. My sister, arms folded, leaned in to whisper, "I can't believe this is real." The skeptics pressed in, eyes wide, or were they just reflecting the gold of the gallery lights, the weight of a success they never thought possible? Every voice I'd heard, "Go back to school, choose something sensible, don't throw your life away," in the hush as they saw all at once that I had built something enduring, something raw out of silence and resolve. My mother took my hand, her grip trembled. "I never knew it would look like this, that people would feel something from it." Her face softened, tears sprang up, unexpected. "I thought you were just dreaming." I held her and it felt like forgiveness. I could almost see that younger self, shoulders hunched under the burden of other people's expectations, stepping out from the shadows. My father edged closer to the painting, still seeking words. "You always saw what we couldn't, that's your gift, Beck." He looked at me with wonder, as if recognizing someone for the first time. The critics, the distant relatives, the teachers who'd once muttered about wasted potential, milled around with their polite glasses of wine. They asked about color, about meaning, about whether I planned to leave Lowe's Angels for Paris or New York, or somewhere proper. I told them I painted because I needed to, because the city and its ghosts, its hidden heartbreak and fragile hope demanded it. I told them I was happiest in the hot, sleepless hours before dawn, putting color down on canvas, listening to the city breathe. The night ebbed away, and at the end, when families drifted home and the walls felt empty again, I stood alone before my favorite painting. An alley at twilight, trash cans tipped, walls spattered with graffiti, a single figure picking through lost things. Light pooled just behind her, enough to see where she'd been and enough to guess where she was heading. I gathered my coat and closed my sketchbook. The last few years rolled through me. The bruised pride of rejection, the scraped hope of survival, the slow labor of making beauty out of hunger. I had left to escape their disbelief, but every brushstroke I'd made since was a language they'd now learned to hear. Now they saw me, and I saw them not as critics but as part of a world that could be changed, one painting at a time. I walked out into the Lowe's Angels night, the city thrumming with possibility, and knew that I had finally returned, not as the girl with the impossible dream, but as the painter whose colors would not fade.